we need to define who does what the timeline is, and then stick to it, because then we can be better with our resources.
We need to stop the excuses, and we need to stop producers wanting different renewal strategy on every account. And we need to stop people from just blaming each other. And we need to just stop emailing our clients exclusively and pick up the darn phone.
If you have a process and procedure, it's easy to onboard new people. And it's excellent for your customers because you're ahead of things and not reacting.
All right, we're back here talking about commercial insurance renewal process. Every agency we walk into, the commercial renewal process, they're always backlogged. There's a lot of finger pointing. I shouldn't say every, but a lot, right? Because it's kind of project management. You have an underwriter, a producer, account manager, business owner, HR person, or controller. You're trying to get all this information together all at once. And so what ends up happening is the project gets off track, and then everybody's scrambling around the week of renewal. I call it the renewal scramble. And all the rest of renewal get backlogged because we have to get this policy renewed. And it seems a bit like chaos to me. But Stephen, what do you think? What are you thinking about commercial renewal process? What are the common challenges you see?
I think that a lot of times I don't want to call until I have somewhat of a rate, but I don't get that until this date. But then it's going to take me X amount of time to get that. And I think people just get overwhelmed and confused. So a lot of agencies in commercial don't want to start renewals 120 days out because they feel that, well, that's 4 months from when the renewal actually is. Why would I start it so far out? When in reality, they need to get some of that information to get an accurate renewal offer. And we know that carriers are taking longer than ever, especially in excess and surplus, to turn that around. Or if they have to go to market, they need to know sooner rather than later. Otherwise, it causes chaos for everyone. If we wait until we get the renewal offer to get updated information, or until we get closer to that 60-day mark, I think it just causes a whole lot of stress and firefighting for everybody involved. So the further we can get ahead of the issue, the more no drama llama we can be. But I think we also have to set clear expectations with the client of here's what we need and why, and what the process looks like. So when we have a clear process, we can explain that process to our clients as well. And I think that that's one of the biggest pain points I see is we need to define who does what the timeline is, and then stick to it, because then we can be better with our resources.
Oh, that was pretty fire.
I might be passionate about that one.
Well, I think that that's a really good point, because it's really important that we're prepared. And so I love the quote, if you don't spend time preparing, you spend time repairing, right? I'd rather spend time preparing so I don't have to go through the chaos of a repair where we miss something, we're scrambling, the client's out of town on vacation, and then the producer wants to be involved, and the underwriter's a mess. And all we're doing is spending so much energy and resources, where if we can get ahead of it, we can get the data that we need. But Therese, maybe you can talk a little bit about why that's so critical too for the client to have good communication. Talking to a business owner, they do business. They might be judging your process like, gosh, if that was my organization, we would be up the creek without the paddle, right?
Yeah, and I worked at an agency where the commercial agent wouldn't explain things like the audit to the customer.
Ooh, scandal.
The customer would come in at renewal, and they would have no idea that they would need their bank accounts and their tax records and all these things. And I'd be like, are you kidding me? You did not explain this to begin with? And you have to basically make sure that you're giving the customer all the information they need to know, not only for the new policy that you may be writing, but for the renewal that's up and coming. The more open communication you have with them at the beginning, the easier the renewal will be, because you have that information and you have that communication link. I also know that business owners, some of them are very productive and they don't have time in their day to be answering insurance calls. So one of the other ways that we found that worked really well is texting them and saying, hey, do you have a minute? I have a question about your insurance policy, or can we set up a time to basically have that communication with them when it's appropriate for them on their timeline.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's the whole point we talk a lot about in our retention process that we have. So guys, just so you know, we have a retention process. You can get the process and procedure, you can buy it from our website, you can have it right away. Everything that you need from forms to the procedure itself. But I think looking at that, some agencies, I remember being at an agency, Therese, where the office manager, and she was the head of commercial lines as well, was mortified that we were going to be texting clients. She's like, I wouldn't want people texting my phone. I go, you're not texting your phone. You're texting the client's phone. That's a business owner that's typically out and about. And he goes, well, we deal a lot with the office manager. Okay, you can ask them. Some office manager we referred. She kept thinking in my mind, she doesn't want people having her personal cell phone number. I'm like, so we would ask, and then we would decline. We would go other ways, and that would be okay. But we have to keep an open mind on those communication channels because the goal is to get the job done. It's not to describe everything going on. Like, if you don't get what you need in a timely fashion, it's going to impact that client, the producer's income, the retention ratio. It has a ripple effect, right? So we have to focus on the outcome, not the task. And then I think, in this market that we're in right now, evaluating everybody's options. So in commercial lines renewals, there's two types of increases, a premium increase and a rate increase. When my business grows, I have to pay more in taxes. When my business grows, I pay more in insurance. That's a premium increase, right? Like I grew, I pay more. And then I think on the flip side, the rate increase is when the carrier needs to increase rate because, they're not hitting their profit margins. They need to be able to pay claims, right? Everything gets more expensive. So you need to also understand, how do you explain that to a client, right? So I think a lot of account managers, when they get the renewal, they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, oh my gosh, did they grow? Right? Because otherwise, oh my gosh, now, or oh my gosh, the audit that's going to come down someday is going to be spicy, right? So pick your spice, pick your poison, right? So, looking at it when you're thinking about the renewal process, maybe Stephen can help a little bit about this, but like, how do you think people can tailor the renewal process to each client? So there's a big difference between a $500,000 commercial client, a $75,000 like plumbing contractor, and then the small $500 Bob. And I think that is so much wider than in personal lines, where the bulk of your business is going to be a certain type, right?
Right.
You might have a couple high net worths, you might have a couple bust outs at the bottom, but most of it's going to be pretty normal, whatever's in your community. But for commercial, that is a wide variety. So how can you customize it?
I think that you need to almost implement a strategy of, yes, every client deserves service. But is it direct bill, minimum premium? Is it audit? I mean, there's a couple different categories and premium sizes. And I think that you need to look at segmenting the business and starting everybody with the same thing, like an offer of a review. Like we can have an automated task or an automated email that goes out to every client saying, hey, renewal's coming up way far in advance. Would you like to book an appointment and use your technology? And allow them the chance to say, yes, I do, or no, I don't. Then I think for the large accounts, we need to then pick up the phone and say, hey, we sent an email. I see you didn't book an appointment. Let's get you on the calendar.
Ooh, calendars. We love calendars, don't we?
So, and I think especially for large accounts, I mean, the higher the premium, the more attention they probably need. And you might need to go in person to a lot of those accounts. You need to sit down with the right people. They may have a board, but you might need to collect information ahead of time. So you need to almost have two appointments, one to collect and do the information, get everything ready for the renewal, and then one to present. Like who gives you the info and then who makes the decision? Sometimes they're two different people. So you need to clarify what the process is and then follow it. But I think that we need to start with offering everybody the opportunity for a review. And then based on size,
also don't
go from there.
Sell like personal lines.
Mhm.
And then my big thing is, and I got into a little bit with a team last week, we were talking about renewal reviews and they're like, oh, well, contractors don't need EPLI. I go, what? I go, don't
Probably need it more than a lot of people.
It's like, don't you ever worry? Everybody needs everything, right? So if you don't believe that certain classes need it, now maybe they need it less than others, but I don't know. I've seen some pretty sexually harassing job sites. Same thing with cyber. Oh, like that won't matter. I'm like, no, you have potentially codes to people's homes, right? Like how to get in. Like you take credit card or you take this or you take that. Like there's a whole million things that you have that you need to focus on. And that's the issue where I think in general, people always try to, oh, well, I like this. Well, how about everybody gets offered so it's their right to decline?
Yeah.
And then the funny part about if you go back to contractors, everyone's always like, oh, they never want inland marine. I'm like, try different. They need it. You got to try different sometimes. So looking at, getting a renewal process in place, I think sometimes one of the challenges we all face is they think of every commercial client like an individual snowflake. Well, for this one, it's the producers involved on this one, but then this happens and then this happens. And I think you also have to protect your producers' time with a new business, a commercial renewal process of what should they get involved in. I don't think you should not have that many hands in a $1,200 renewal. They need to be off going and doing other things, right? And so a renewal process for commercial lines also helps you identify who should be doing what. But this is what I'm going to tell you. If you think about your commercial renewal process and there's a renewal scramble at the end, it's chaos in between. You're thinking that you have a timeline that nobody's ever hitting and everybody's blaming the carrier, then you need a renewal process. Because my thought process is we go out to submission or we go out to market on our timeline. They can delay in responding, but I should be able to see that in the management system. But if we didn't get out to market in time, that's our problem. And we need to stop the excuses and we need to stop producers wanting different renewal strategy on every account. And we need to stop people from just blaming each other. And we need to just stop emailing our clients exclusively and pick up the darn phone.
Yeah.
That was unenthusiastic. You're like, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, we just need to pick up the phone.
That's a whole nother episode. Pick up the phone. All right, let's end it the same way we're doing all the rest of them. What are the top reasons why everybody needs a commercial renewal process? Therese, you want to go first?
Sure. Again, you need to have a strategy that everybody can follow. If you have a process and procedure, it's easy to onboard new people. And it's excellent for your customers because you're ahead of things and not reacting to things. My martial arts studio, they decided the carrier wasn't going to cover him the day that it needed to be paid.
Oh,
The day it needed to pay. That's when he found out that he didn't have coverage. That's
not
not what you want for someone's business. So treat your clients better than that.
I love that. That's a great feature. Steven?
I think with a clear process, we also can monitor and adjust as market trends change. Like I know that agencies that had great processes to begin with, as there was started to be a shift in the market, it was easier for them to adapt and update some of their processes so the team was still less stressed versus when everybody was already running around like a bunch of crazy folk. And then the market gets more stressful, they get even crazier. So I think it's that clarity is kind, and we know what the expectation is. It's clear, it's concise, and we can adapt as needed.
My whole thing on a commercial renewal process is your timeline. Like everybody needs to be held accountable to it. It should be night and day. Steven knows, like, we audit our renewal process and there's very guidelines like, hey, this has got to go out at this time. Now, yes, we can have a conversation about it, but it's not a scenario where we want to just jam something on people last minute. I don't love that. And I think sometimes, or we develop these relationships and then we don't get out enough and ahead of it. And we have to face this big rate increase that we don't recommend what people truly need. So despite the rate increase, if they still need that coverage, they still need the coverage despite the cost. So everybody go check out our renewal process. We have personal lines, commercial lines. We have E&S renewals for commercial lines. And we have it all mapped out in a beautiful process with all the forms, all the questions, everything that you need to get your team on track to have a beautiful renewal experience. I like to think about, forget the renewal scramble. Let's make it a beautiful ballet with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And everybody's up standing at their seat, they're clapping at the end because it's so meaningful and so moving. That would be my vote anyway. All right, everybody, we will see you in the next podcast.